Dry fly fishing on the rivers is simply one of the great joys of fly fishing here in Tasmania. Walking up any of the small streams, spotting fish rising or sitting in runs, presenting a small dry fly to them is about as much fun as you can have and one of the great highlights of the season. We're going to walk up this little stream here today and show you everything that you need to know. It's a technique that requires very minimal equipment but relies heavily on the angler's ability to walk up the stream, remain undetected and present a small dry fly just ahead of the fish. So it's great fun and we're going to show you everything you need to know here today. So accessing the rivers all around Tasmania is pretty well laid out by the Inland Fisheries Service Angler Access Program, as you can see here. So anywhere that you've got one of these little brown angler signs, that's an access point. They're all referenced in the Inland Fisheries Service app, which is called InFish, or you can download the PDF brochures online too. Bearing in mind that a lot of these access points do pass through private properties, farms, things like that. So just being respectful of that as well. Really the best time of the year to be practicing some dry fly fishing on the rivers here in Tasmania is just after Christmas all the way through to the end of the season. So from about January through to April, that sort of summer and late sort of autumn conditions are really good for doing this. That's going to give us a few different things that we want when we're dry fly fishing. So it gives us some nice warm sunny days, some low water levels and great insect hatches, and that's really the things that we want to be successful when we're doing a bit of dry fly fishing on the rivers here. So the warm sunny days that we get a lot of over the summer and autumn are great for the insect hatches. So that's really going to get those insects going, bringing a lot of both terrestrial and aquatic hatches going. So you get caddis, terrestrial insects like grasshoppers, damselflies, blowflies, all of that sort of thing. So there's a great range of insects for the fish to come up and feed on. It also gives us great casting conditions as well. So you've got nice calm conditions, which is really going to allow you to land those flies nice and accurately in front of the fish, which is really important. We want those nice, accurate and subtle presentations. And if it's just too windy, we can't really achieve that. The other thing at this time of the year is the river levels really drop down to a low to moderate sort of flow, which is great for spotting fish as well as getting those fish up and rising. So in terms of the gear that you're going to need when you come and do a bit of dry fly fishing on the rivers here in Tasmania, very simple setup. So all we've got here is, I've got an 8-foot 4-weight rod here today. Even a 7-foot 3-weight around that sort of mark is fine. So anything around a 3 to 4-weight rod. So we're nice and light in the rig that we're using. So I've got that set up there, got a 4-weight reel, 4-weight weight forward floating fly line. And then all I've done is just attached a 9-foot 5X leader onto the end of that. I always carry both some 6 and 7X tippet. So I've got those both there. 6X, which is about 4 pound, is generally pretty good. That's going to be fine for most situations that you come across. But you may just get some fish that are just particularly fussy or hard to catch, and you might just need to go down to some 7X tippet and lengthen that leader out again just to get those fish that are particularly fussy just to take. So just keep that in mind, that you've got 6 and 7X leader and a 5X tippet there, and that's going to allow you to change your leader as you need. So 6X usually fine, but you may need to go to 7X as well. So fly selection again for the dry fly fishing on the rivers here is pretty simple. So we've just got a few flies that we use, which are going to be pretty safe bets. So there's a couple of scenarios that you might come across here. You could find that the fish are feeding on really, really small insects that you can hardly even see on the water. So in that scenario, you really want a little bit of a range of small dry flies to cast. So we've got a few here that we use. My favourites are things like an F-fly, which is a caddis imitation. We've got a little midge imitation, a parachute Adams, and probably the most effective fly that we use is a little flying ant pattern. So when you come across those fish that appear to be feeding on really small insects, these are the flies that you want, anything from a 16 to an 18. I like these ones because they still have some visible posts on the top as well. So you've got sort of orange and pinks and white sort of posts on the top of them. So even though they're a very small fly in terms of the fish seeing them, you can still see them quite easily too, which is important obviously to know when the fish is eating yours. The other situation that you might come across is that the fish are feeding on quite large terrestrial insects. So we get a lot of grasshoppers, blowflies, damselflies, things like that late summer and into autumn here in Tasmania. So I've got a few of my favourite sort of hopper imitations there, and also a blue damselfly pattern's really good as well. So some other things that you might need when you come and do some dry fly fishing here on the rivers is obviously a good vest or a good bag or something to keep all of those things that we've just spoken about, fly boxes, tippets, that sort of thing in there. Got all your floatants and nippers and things like that too. Good pair of waders. At this time of the year, through the summer and autumn period that we're practicing this technique, pretty dry sort of grass, and you also get a lot of blackberries and things like that around. So it's good to have some good protection there as you walk up the stream. Another really important piece of equipment is a good pair of polarised sunglasses. Again, we're going to be walking up the stream and trying to spot fish, so we really need a good pair of sunglasses to allow us to see into the water and spot those fish as they're sitting there in the run. So we're down on the water now, we're all set up with our gear and got a nice little run here to start off the day with. And we just want to talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing. So we're always going to be wading upstream. So all the fish are always going to be sitting upstream in the river. So we want to be walking upstream so that we're approaching them from behind and not being seen to the fish or disturbing them in any way. Generally the type of water that we're going to be fishing in for this technique is the slower runs. So we're not sort of focusing quite as much on the faster runs as we would be if we were using a nymphing technique on the river. We're really looking at these nice slow gliding runs that have still got a bit of flow, so there's still a bit of food coming down to the fish, but it just allows the fish to sit there nice and gently and just sipping away on those little insects. So with all of that said, we're all set up and ready to go. There's a few fish rising here behind me, so let's go and have a go at them. So just saw that one rising in that little bubble line over there. Flicked that little caddis imitation that we said's a really good flight for when the fish are feeding on something small. And he thought it was pretty good. Just get down here. Again, we were just keeping our profile nice and low on that bank so that we remained undetected to the fish. Flicked it over there and he accepted it nicely, so that's a good start to the day. First little run here, nice little fish to get off the mark. So there we go, nice little brown trout there. See that little F-fly pinned in the corner of the jaw. Came up and took that nicely. There he is. Slip him back in and keep working our way up. So when you're choosing a location to do a bit of dry fly fishing on the rivers in Tasmania, you're really looking for those sections of river that have nice long gliding runs like we've got here. So you can see this is a nice flat pool that goes for quite a long way, and then up the top there you can see we've got a bit of faster water that it flows into. So that's really good because that's bringing the food down into this slow pool, but it's also a nice spot for the fish to sit and just sip down those insects as they slow down into the run. Up the other side of the river you can see we've got a few logs and things as well, and there's a nice bit of depth here too. So all of those things are good things to look for when you're doing some dry fly fishing, really because you're looking for those holding fish. You really want to look for those areas that have got good habitat for them to sit in. So you're going to get better fish numbers, and they're also going to be a lot more comfortable to just sit there and rise. They're not sort of spooked by anything or not worried that they're going to get attacked by predators or anything like that. So a section like this that we've got here behind us is the ideal water that you're trying to look for. So we've got a fish just sitting here, just in front of this willow. You might not be able to see it on the camera, but he's just holding on the bottom there in this little shallow edge. So we'll go with the same little ant pattern, and I'm just gonna try and drop that just ahead of the fish, and we'll see if he'll take this. He had a bit of a look at it. There we go, got him there. Could actually just see that one sitting there. Just Polaroided him sitting up behind that willow. Flicked that little ant pattern in there again, and he swung over quite a way to eat that, so that's pretty cool. Put this net underneath him. There we go. Another nice little fish there. Great fun to walk up there and actually just see that one sitting there. So as we've spoken about, a really important part of this technique is being able to get that fly quickly and accurately in front of a feeding fish. Now a big part of that is what we call line management, and that just refers to what we're doing here with our loose line and things like that. So we just want to make sure that we're staying really well organised with all of our loose line and our rod and the line that we've got out there, so that we can quickly and accurately get that fly where we need it to go. We don't want to be sort of hooked up around ourselves with a whole heap of loose line. That fish will be sitting there feeding for a little while, but you've got that window of opportunity to get that fly in front of it. The last thing you want to do is have to be untangling a whole heap of fly line, and then you look back up and the fish has moved away. So what I like to do with my loose line that I've got out here, which is the distance that I'm going to be casting, is just make sure that that's sort of floating down behind you with the flow of the river. We don't sort of want to have it floating back on towards ourselves like this. That's going to be more chance of getting tangled up around our boots and waders and stuff like that. So just quickly flick that line downstream, and that'll just let it sort of drift down the river behind you. Shouldn't get caught up on anything back there. When you're ready to make a cast, all of that loose line's ready to go. So casting wise, when you're doing this technique, really what you want to practice being able to do is to quickly pick that fly up, have minimal false casts, and land it exactly where you want it to go. So when you see a fish rising, you want to be able to quickly pick that up, a couple of false casts, and bang, get the fly in front of the fish while it's feeding. So the other thing that we want to look at is the way that the fly lands on the water. So we obviously want that to be as natural as we possibly can. Again, we want that leader to be landing out nice and straight. So we want the fly to be as far away from the fly line as we possibly can. So again, coming forward, and then just at the end, taking a little bit of speed off, just so that fly just lands nice and gently and starts drifting downstream as naturally as it possibly can. The only exception to that would be if you were fishing with those bigger flies that we looked at, the hoppers and damselflies and things like that. On some days where it's really windy and the fish are really aggressively targeting them, you may want a slightly more aggressive landing of your fly on the water to sort of imitate that bit of a splat that the grasshoppers will make. So we've got another beautiful run up here in front of us. You can see that is just ideal water to see a few fish rising. So got a nice fast run up the top. It's nice and deep, and then it really slows down before we reach this next little rapid here where we're standing. So that's just an ideal piece of water where you should see some fish rising. We haven't seen any just yet, and what we're doing is just standing back and just giving it a bit of time. So you won't always see fish as soon as you pull up to a run, and that's okay. If it's a really nice piece of water like this, the best thing you can do is just stand back from that run and just give it a few minutes. And often you'll see a fish or two come up after a few minutes of standing there. There could be fish anywhere in there, so we don't want to just go charging in assuming where the fish are. Better just to stand back, give it a few minutes, get a good idea of where the fish are holding, and then you can really target that run effectively and hopefully get a couple of fish out of it. There we go, got him there. So we were just being a little bit more patient there in that run, really just holding out, walking up there further. We were just being patient and just waiting to see whether that fish was still sitting there. And he just gave one little rise, flicked that little ant again up in front of him. And that's great fun to watch him come up and sit that down. Nice fish, get him in there. And there we go, and there's another one rising just up ahead of us, so we'll get him off, and should be a good chance at another fish up there because we haven't disturbed that water too much. So we'll have another look at this guy and then carry on. Beautiful markings. You can see the little ant pattern there in the corner of his mouth. Came up and grabbed that, so we'll get him away. He's ready to go. So another lovely little fish there. He was just sipping away there, as we saw in that bubble line. We just flicked a little ant there again up ahead of him, and he took that really nicely. Beautiful little fish, nice markings. So we'll get him away there. Let him go back to what he was doing. Came up and took that, and he's just wrapped himself around a log up here. Oh, and he's come off. So anyway, there we go. There we go. There. So we had a few more casts there after that one that wrapped himself around the log and didn't have any interest in the little ant again, so I changed back over to the F-fly, the little caddis pattern that we started off with back in that first run. And straight away, that one there, thought it was pretty good. So again, just showing the importance of having a few different flies there and just being ready to change over if you need to. And also we've just given it a few minutes after that last fish for the run to settle back down, let those fish go back to feeding. And that little guy there, thought that was pretty good, so another nice little fish. So I've got a couple more fish rising up further here in the run, and I'm really just going to move nice and slowly. So the last thing we want to do is just go charging up through the water, creating a lot of disturbance with our feet. That's the easiest way to spook fish, is with your feet on the bottom of the river, moving those rocks around and creating a lot of splash with the water. So you really just want to move nice and slowly up the river, as gently as you can. Again, those fish are just holding there in the river, so they're not going to go anywhere if there's no reason to. So they'll just keep rising away there, and you're really in no hurry just to work your way up the river nice and slowly. Once you get close enough to those fish to make a cast, you can then go for it. But you just want to move nice and slowly up the river, minimal disturbance with your feet, trying to keep everything as subtle as we can as we approach the fish. There we go. Saw that one rising away there. And again, nice subtle approach. I was just keeping my profile nice and low so the fish didn't see us. One cast with the little ant pattern there was ideal, with a nice little fish in the net there. So pretty happy with that. One cast, one fish. Should have a pretty good day if that's the going rate. So lovely little fish there. Came up and took that little ant pattern there. So we'll get him unhooked and slip him away down through here. Cool. So we've just come up to the next run here again, and all we're going to do is just stand back and have a bit of a look. Obviously we're probably expecting fish to be more out in this main sort of bubble line, but we still want to keep our eyes out, you know, all throughout the run. We don't want to sort of leave any pieces of water out where there could be a fish sitting. And I have got pretty good visibility up here too, so I could see a fish just sitting there pretty well, but we'll sort of fish our way up through there and just keep our eyes peeled as we go up and see what we see in this run. So got all my line out ready to go, just working upstream. If I see a fish, I'm going to be trying to land that fly just upstream of where it's sitting, probably 3 to 5 feet or so is going to be the ideal distance to land that fly. And we'll just, again, slowly work our way up so I'm not disturbing anything. And we'll see what we see. There we go. Oh. Just was casting over into this faster run here over to our right, and I just saw that one rise up on the left hand side here, and I actually thought the cast had gone behind him, but he swung around and again has taken that little ant. Interesting spot for a fish to be that time, but again, it just pays to really keep your eyes open, surveying the whole river as you're walking up, making sure that you're not missing anywhere that a fish could be holding. Just get him in there. There we go. Great fun there to walk up the river and just spot that little rise, flick that dry fly up there, watch the fish come up and eat it. Doesn't get much better than that. So a great little morning out there doing some dry fly fishing on a beautiful little stream here in Tasmania. We've had some great fun there, saw a lot of fish rising, and as you can see, putting all of those things into practice that we spoke about, you can have some really good fun, incredible sight fishing, just one of the great pleasures of fly fishing here in Tasmania.